The Cleveland Browns have just made the most daring quarterback decision in recent memory, and it could reshape the entire franchise. Head coach Kevin Stefansky gathered the team behind closed doors, laid it out with no frills, and walked out leaving the room stunned. Shadour Sanders starts Sunday. Joe Flacco is backup. Dylan Gabriel drops to third string. No debate, no wiggle room. Just a thunderclap announcement before the Browns face the Cincinnati Bengals in their season opener. For a team with one of the most tortured quarterback histories in the NFL, this is far more than a routine depth chart shuffle. This is an organizational pivot, the kind that creates ripples in the locker room, in the front office, and even across the league. The silence in the meeting said it all. Veterans nodded, rookies exchanged nervous glances, ... And Gabriel, the supposed developmental prize taken in the third round, kept his composure, only to walk quietly out of the facility, expression unreadable. Within hours, reports surfaced that his camp was already weighing a trade. If it sounds dramatic, that's because it is. Sanders wasn't supposed to be here this fast. A fifth-round pick, branded more as a media spectacle than a franchise cornerstone, he's leapfrogged seasoned veterans with a preseason run that turned heads everywhere. Nearly 80% completions, game-changing scrambles, and highlight reel throws that couldn't be coached. He brought fireworks, Gabriel brought stability, and Cleveland picked fireworks. But this is more than football production. It's about hierarchy, authority, and risk. The Browns aren't just starting a rookie. They're betting their entire organizational identity on him. The offense is being restructured overnight. The defense is preparing him for a baptism by fire, and the rest of the league is watching with curiosity or disbelief. This isn't just naming a starter, it's flipping the table. And the question isn't just if Sanders is ready, it's whether the Browns are. Picture the scene. It's a closed-door players' meeting in Berea. The Browns roster is crammed into chairs, waiting for routine announcements. Coaches usually talk about game plans, practice details, or travel schedules. But this time, head coach Kevin Stefansky walks in, stands at the front, and drops a single sentence that changes everything. Shadour Sanders starts Sunday. Joe Flacco is backup. Everyone else, prepare accordingly. That was it. No big speech, no drawn-out explanation, just a blunt declaration. And then silence. According to insiders, the room froze. Veterans nodded like they had seen it coming. Rookies looked around wide-eyed, and positional coaches immediately started flipping to new play scripts. The air of finality was heavy. For players, especially the quarterbacks, this wasn't just strategy. It felt like a verdict. Most eyes turned to Dylan Gabriel. The third-round pick had spent months quietly grinding, impressing with discipline and accuracy. Through camp, he did everything by the book, studied the playbook tirelessly, stayed mistake-free, kept his head down. And yet, in one sentence, he was erased from the competition he was told would be fair. Reports say Gabriel just sat there, motionless, face unreadable, before standing up and heading straight to the parking garage without speaking. Within hours, his agent was on the phone with management, opening the door to trade discussions. For Stefansky, the announcement wasn't spur of the moment. It was a calculated line in the sand. Sanders had electrified preseason games. He made explosive throws, extended plays with his legs, and had a swagger Gabriel couldn't match. The coaching staff couldn't keep pretending it was close. Still, the bluntness of the reveal and Gabriel's silent exit turned a normal roster decision into a cultural flashpoint. It was no longer just about naming a starter. It was about reshaping authority, locker room balance, and an entire season's direction. And as the whispers started spreading through the building, one thing became clear. This was only the beginning. The decision wasn't about favoritism, popularity, or hype alone. It was about what played out on the field. Because no matter how much the Browns tried to frame this as a competition, the numbers and the energy told a very different story. Shadour Sanders didn't just play well this preseason, he sizzled. In limited action, he completed an eye-popping 76% of his passes, engineered 7 touchdown drives, and consistently made plays that brought the crowd to its feet. His stats told part of the story. 386 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, only 1 interception, plus nearly 90 rushing yards and another score. But even beyond the numbers, it was the feeling he created. Improvisational brilliance, highlight throws downfield, and the sense that anything could happen with the ball in his hands. By comparison, Dylan Gabriel was solid. He was efficient, accurate on short and intermediate throws, and played mistake-free football. He even put up a clean stat line: 412 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. But nothing about his time on the field shook things up. No fireworks, no jaw-dropping moments. Gabriel looked polished but safe. Sanders looked raw but electric. And in today's NFL, teams gamble on electricity. That intangible energy bled into the rest of the roster. Teammates visibly fed off Sanders' confidence. Receivers lit up at the chance for a more vertical, aggressive offense. Even veterans on defense admitted privately that his ability to extend plays made practice sessions tougher, mimicking the type of dynamic quarterbacks they face across the AFC. For a franchise that has stumbled through bland quarterback play for decades, Shedeur was the spark they'd been desperate for. And while Gabriel checked all the boxes on paper, the Browns knew checking boxes isn't how you win in a division with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Safe had been Cleveland's routine. Explosive was Shedeur. And that's why the staff, grudgingly at first, finally leaned into the chaos. For Dylan Gabriel, this wasn't just a depth chart adjustment. It was a gut punch. By all accounts, Gabriel did everything right. He mastered the playbook faster than anyone, earned respect from veteran teammates with his preparation, and delivered efficient, turnover-free football in the preseason. His stat line looked like exactly what coaches usually want in a rookie. Over 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a passer rating north of 100. In most organizations, that puts you in serious contention to start. In Cleveland, it got him benched before he even had a chance. When Stefansky delivered the decision, insiders say Gabriel sat frozen. No reaction, no words. He simply walked out once the meeting ended, headed for the parking garage, and left without so much as acknowledging teammates. Teammates described the moment as eerily quiet. Like watching the reality sink in for someone who had given everything only to see the outcome already decided. Hours later, reports circulated that Gabriel's agent had contacted the front office to discuss options, including the possibility of a trade. For a third-round pick who was told he'd be developed patiently with a runway to compete, losing out to a fifth-round media sensation felt like betrayal. Dylan did everything right, one veteran reportedly told a team insider, and it still wasn't enough. What message does that send to the rest of us? That's where the fallout expands. In a league obsessed with the idea of meritocracy, that hard work and performance earn results, Gabriel's demotion raises uncomfortable questions. Was this really about ability or about excitement? Was it decided on the field or in a marketing room? For Gabriel, the challenge now isn't just recovering his confidence. It's deciding whether his future can still be in Cleveland, or if his path has already shifted elsewhere. Kevin Stefansky didn't just name a starting quarterback. He put his job, his credibility, and maybe the entire Browns organizational structure on the line. For months, reports suggested Stefansky favored Dylan Gabriel. Gabriel was the safer, more polished option, a system quarterback who could run the playbook exactly as drawn, limit mistakes, and ease the coaching staff's stress. But as Shadour Sanders kept dazzling in preseason, ownership pressure began to mount. Sanders wasn't just a football prospect. He was a brand, a storyline, and a potential shot of adrenaline for a franchise desperate to excite a beaten-down fan base. Do you stick with the safe plan and risk ignoring the locker room momentum behind Sanders? Or do you gamble on a rookie phenom whose highs are spectacular but whose lows could sink you quickly? By giving Sanders the nod, Stefansky chose the gamble. And make no mistake, it is a gamble. If Sanders thrives, Stefansky is credited as a bold leader who trusted talent over draft slot. If Sanders flops, especially if Gabriel leaves town and excels somewhere else, the blame falls directly on Stefansky's shoulders. Fair or not, his authority now lives and dies with Sanders' performance. The ownership piece adds even more weight. Insiders claim Jimmy Haslam, often accused of meddling in football operations, has surprisingly stepped back following prior controversies, allowing Stefansky greater autonomy. That makes this announcement not just a QB call, but a power shift. If Sanders succeeds, Part 2. Stefansky was caught in the middle. Do you stick with the safe plan and risk ignoring the locker room momentum behind Sanders? Or do you gamble on a rookie phenom whose highs are spectacular but whose lows could sink you quickly? By giving Sanders the nod, Stefansky chose the gamble. And make no mistake, it is a gamble. If Sanders thrives, Stefansky is credited as a bold leader who trusted talent over draft slot. If Sanders flops, especially if Gabriel leaves town and excels somewhere else, the blame falls directly on Stefansky's shoulders. Fair or not, his authority now lives and dies with Sanders' performance. The ownership piece adds even more weight. Insiders claim Jimmy Haslam, often accused of meddling in football operations, has surprisingly stepped back following prior controversies, allowing Stefansky greater autonomy. That makes this announcement not just a QB call, but a power shift. If Sanders succeeds, Stefansky cements control over football decisions. If not, he could lose both the locker room and the last ounce of that autonomy. So while this looks like a depth chart move, it's closer to a bet. One risky hand of cards where the head coach puts his entire reputation into the pile and says, "I'm all in on Shadour Sanders." Quarterback controversies don't just happen on depth charts or in press conferences. They ripple through every corner of the locker room. When Stefansky announced Shadour Sanders as the starter, the initial silence in the room turned into something much more revealing. Unity, but also undeniable tension. Veteran leaders like Myles Garrett stepped up quickly. Sources say Garrett called a private huddle with the defense and made the message clear. Whoever coach names starter gets 100% support. Period. That kind of immediate show of leadership matters. It closed the door on any whispers about loyalty and signaled that the team wasn't going to let this decision crack its chemistry. Receivers privately admitted they were thrilled. Sanders' improvisational style means expanded route trees, more vertical shots, and creative freedom. After years of a constricted offense, the idea of stretching defenses with explosive plays had them buzzing. Offensive linemen, meanwhile, took the opposite stance. They got clear instructions that their new #1 job was keeping a rookie upright in a division notorious for brutal pass rushes. And then there's Joe Flacco. By all reports, the veteran admitted he expected to be a placeholder starter. But instead of sulking after getting demoted to backup, he's doubled down on his mentor role, teaching the rookies defensive recognition techniques, explaining protection calls, and keeping calm in the building. If there's a stabilizing force in this chaos, oddly enough, it's Flacco. Not everyone is satisfied, though. Teammates saw Dylan Gabriel's reaction, the quiet exit, the visible frustration. More than one player admitted privately he deserved better. That shared feeling adds a complicated layer. Publicly, players are rallying behind Sanders, but privately, many wish Gabriel's effort hadn't been wasted. So for now, the Browns' locker room is holding steady. Sanders has the support. Gabriel has the sympathy, and Flacco has the respect. Whether that fragile balance can hold through adversity is the real test that's coming next. The truth is, this quarterback decision was never just about Shadour Sanders or Dylan Gabriel. It's about the Cleveland Browns themselves, a franchise that has turned quarterback mismanagement into an art form. For decades, the Browns have struggled to find stability under center. Fans don't just remember the infamous jersey of failed QBs. They live it, year after year. The names change, but the pattern stays the same. Confusion, rushed decisions, and organizational dysfunction bleeding into the locker room. And now, despite the Browns having built one of their strongest rosters in years, a fierce defense led by Myles Garrett and offensive weapons ready to make plays, the spotlight is once again on quarterback controversy. This one feels even bigger than the usual storyline, though. Why? Because it's happening under the national microscope. The moment Sanders was named starter, national media flooded Cleveland practice. Analysts debated the move. Social media exploded. Even comedians on late-night TV began poking fun at the Browns' never-ending quarterback drama. A routine depth chart adjustment instantly morphed into a cultural circus. And here's the dangerous part. Dysfunction doesn't stay in the quarterback room. It echoes across the organization. Players start questioning leadership. Agents whisper about trades. Free agents hesitate to sign. And suddenly, a promising roster becomes another wasted season. Multiple sources have already admitted privately, we can't afford another distraction season. Yet Cleveland seems unable to escape itself. Even when they'd have two young quarterbacks to develop and a veteran Super Bowl winner in the room as steady insurance, they've managed to turn the situation into headlines about fractured direction and mixed priorities. So the bigger story here is simple. It's not just about who plays quarterback, but about how the Browns continue to prove that even with talent on the field, dysfunction at the top might undo it all. While Cleveland wrestles with its own turmoil, the rest of the NFL isn't just watching for entertainment. It's taking notes. Because what's unfolding in Berea is more than a quarterback controversy. It's a live case study in how much power the head coach really has and how far organizations will go chasing upside over stability. Executives and coaches around the league are whispering about Stefansky's choice to start Shadour Sanders as a precedent. For years, the traditional method with rookie QBs has been clear. Ease them in slowly, let them learn behind veterans, minimize early mistakes, and bring them along steadily. That's how countless quarterbacks have been groomed into stars. From Patrick Mahomes sitting his first year under Alex Smith to Aaron Rodgers famously waiting behind Brett Favre. But now, Stefansky has turned that model on its head by throwing a rookie into the fire week 1 over 2 other quarterbacks who were on paper safer options. This doesn't just raise eyebrows in Cleveland. It raises questions everywhere. Front office executives are asking, is it better to play it safe with a Gabriel-type development path, built on discipline and reps? Or should franchises gamble earlier on raw, electrifying ceiling? Sanders' ascension puts that debate front and center. If he flourishes, other teams may feel emboldened to skip the traditional redshirt year and unleash their rookies. If he collapses, it'll only reinforce the safer path and possibly cost Stefansky his job. Make no mistake, what Cleveland does here could ripple into draft war rooms across the league. Teams with dynamic young quarterbacks are watching, wondering whether Stefansky's risk becomes a blueprint or a cautionary tale. That's why Sanders' debut isn't just a Brown story. It's a test case shaping the NFL's philosophy on rookie quarterbacks, organizational alignment, and when risk is worth taking. All the debates, all the headlines, all the speculation, it all comes down to one thing: Sunday. Shadour Sanders won't just be stepping onto a football field, he'll be stepping into the NFL's fiercest baptism by fire, a division rival showdown against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. And it's no exaggeration to say every snap will be scrutinized. the Bengals have made their intentions clear. Defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo has scrapped his old game plan and built rookie-specific pressure packages. Expect disguised blitzes, rotating coverages, and a level of defensive trickery designed to overwhelm even seasoned quarterbacks. For a rookie seeing his first real NFL bullets, this isn't a soft landing. It's a storm. Inside the Browns building, preparation has flipped into overdrive. Offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt has retooled the entire playbook, baking in rollouts, bootlegs, and quarterback runs to harness Sanders' mobility. Veterans on the O-line have been told outright, protection is priority number one. Receivers are being schemed up for deeper shots, expecting Sanders' arm talent to unlock plays that Gabriel's safer style never would. The stakes? Monumental. If Sanders handles Cincinnati with poise, hits a few explosive plays, maybe even steals a hard-fought win, the Browns will look like visionaries. Stefansky will be hailed as the coach who trusted his gut. Sanders will become a star overnight. But if he stumbles, the chorus of critics will be deafening. Doubts will swirl about rushing him too soon. Gabriel's camp will push harder for a trade, and Stefansky's gamble will look less like conviction and more like desperation. In truth, one game won't fully settle the debate, but it will set the tone, because on Sunday, it isn't just Sanders' debut. It's the day Cleveland finds out whether they lit the spark for a renaissance or just poured gasoline on another fire. The Cleveland Browns' decision to start Shadour Sanders isn't just another quarterback storyline. It's a franchise-defining gamble, one that could either drag them back into the same cycle of dysfunction or finally break them free from it. Think about what's at stake here. Kevin Stefansky has tied his credibility directly to a rookie quarterback. Dylan Gabriel, who by all measures earned the right to compete, may now leave the organization entirely. And Joe Flacco, a veteran with a Super Bowl ring, has been reduced to a mentor role behind the most scrutinized rookie in the league. That's not just a quarterback depth chart. That's an identity crisis wrapped in cleats and helmets. For fans, the excitement is real. Shadour Sanders represents the hope of something new, explosive plays, highlight reel moments, and maybe even a future where the Browns aren't the punchline of late-night jokes. But hope is fragile in Cleveland. Every snap Sanders takes will become a referendum, not only on his talent, but on whether the Browns' leadership has finally learned from decades of mistakes, or is simply repeating them with a shinier face at the helm. The irony is almost cruel. If Shedeur thrives, Stefansky will be praised as bold, ownership will be credited with restraint, and the Browns could become the league's biggest surprise. But if he fails, it won't just be a lost season. It could be a collapse that costs jobs, fractures locker rooms, and cements the Browns' reputation as football's eternal cautionary tale. Either way, Sunday isn't just game one. It's the beginning of a story that could redefine the Browns for years to come. And the whole football world is watching. ...